Out at the Christmas tree farm today, it's time for fertilizing. Actually, my son's going to do all the fertilizing. I'm just here for show. But we are putting on fertilizer on our Christmas tree farms. We are mostly Nobles and Noordmans. We also have a lot of Grands. Obviously, it's best if you do a soil test to find out what exactly you need. We've done soil tests. We don't always do them every year. What we have in this bag right here is 23010 plus boron, which is kind of a standard Christmas tree fertilizer here in the Pacific Northwest. The 23 obviously is a nitrogen, which is the most important both for greening the trees and a lot of growth. If you're not familiar with boron, which is the added element at the end, boron helps for bud production, so it'll produce more branches. So we like to have the boron in there so we don't get long stems with no buds. There's a lot of buds that'll grow. And then the nitrogen, again, will in the following years those buds will grow out and there'll be plenty of growth to fill in the trees, so it will grow really well. So we have 23010 that if we don't do a soil sample, it's probably going to be a good fertilizer for our Nobles and our Noordmans and our Grand Firs and everything else we do here in the Pacific Northwest. We get ours at Valley Ag and Centralia, Chehalis, Centralia, same thing. So we pick it up and we just spread it by hand. So the tools that I need for this, a bucket, a cup or a different type of cup, and we just shake it out. So the rate is, generally speaking, without, again, if we haven't done a soil test, 2 ounces per foot of tree. So if I have a 3-foot tall tree, 6 ounces will go in my cup, and we'll shake it around the drip line. I'll demonstrate that here in a little bit. It's not rocket science. If we have a 12-foot tree, then we need 24 ounces of fertilizer spread out around the drip line. This is late March. Typically we do our fertilizing in April, just before the buds break out. Actually, late March is a good time. If you look at the growth charts, on the roots will actually started growing in March and April, and then the buds break usually around here in April, and they start growing in May. So there's root growth that starts before you see the branch and the buds open on the branches. So it's good to have some fertilizer in there, especially to get these roots of the Nobles going, because they tend to have a little bit of issue. One more thing about adding fertilizer, we will be spreading this around the drip line, and a lot of it will get caught up in the branches, but because we don't have any new growth yet this year, there's a waxy coat on the needles, and so the nitrogen and all the other chemicals that get on the trees are not going to hurt them. As it rains and dissolves and falls to the ground, it's not going to be an issue. If we wait until the trees have started budding out and there's new growth, those new needles are not protected with that waxing coat. So if you sprinkle the fertilizer around on it and it gets caught up in there, it can do some damage to the branches, but right now it will not be an issue at all. Now obviously if you're trying to do 2 ounces per foot of tree, you should, to begin with, measure it out and get a feel for what 2 ounces, 4 ounces, 8 ounces look like. After a while, you begin to know what it feels like and what it looks like. You don't have to be exactly precise, but that's generally recommended. We like to work in pairs when we do this, because as you're putting this around the trees, if you have to go all the way around the tree and you're turning circles all the way around the trees, you end up getting awfully dizzy, to be honest. The first few times we did this was like, what are we doing? And then we found it's best to just go half a semicircle around the tree, semicircle around the next tree, and then the person on the other side does the other semicircle, and you can walk up and down the rows visiting with a friend or a brother, and in my son's case, visiting with a brother, as they do semicircles around the trees, and then they're not getting dizzy. Also, or if you're by yourself, as Isaiah is today, you shake out on a semicircle going down the left side, and then you turn around and do the semicircle back. But if you're spinning circles around the tree, 1, you're going to cover more ground, and 2, you're going to get dizzy. So walk the road doing semicircles fertilizing. Let's take a closer look at what that looked like. Some caught up in the tree. You can see it spread out along the ground. Right here we have a tree that we just planted this year. It has really been in the ground 1 month. You want to be really hesitant to put a lot of fertilizer on. You don't want to stimulate a whole lot of growth that the roots can't support just yet. So we're hesitant to put a lot, maybe just a pinch on. And actually we use a 16 for the brand new trees and maybe the second year trees, whereas we use the 23010 for our established trees. It can be a pain when you have a little tree like this that's out in the middle of the taller trees. You don't want to be changing fertilizers all the time. But first year trees, we like to use 16 as opposed to 23010 with boron. So here in this climate and the type of soil we have, the soil tends to get too acidic. And so again, we do samples and try to raise the pH and lower the acidity quite often. We want to be at 5 to 5.5 for Noble Firs, and we're usually, by nature, we're more acidic than that. So on a field that hadn't been treated before, we planted a new area. Isaiah went and spread ran the quad with a spreader and spread 1,000 pounds for that acre, so that should raise it 1 point and make it less acidic. For the rest of the field that has been treated in the past, we put another 1,000 pounds that we just spread out over several more acres, but a lot lower dose. Ideally, lime you would cultivate into the ground, but we're not turning up the ground now. So we just spread it with a spreader that covered the entire field, around the trees, in the rows, everything. And fortunately, it's water activated. We get plenty of water here, or it gets it worked into the soil with water. So again, cultivating it into the ground would be ideal with the lime, but we did not have the chance to do that. We're not doing that right now. So the sooner you get it on, the better. If you can get it before the rains, the better, and get the lime worked in. But you will see Isaiah spreading a couple 1,000 pounds of lime today. If you got any value today, please hit the like button. It does help us out on the algorithm. Thanks for joining me on the Flanagan Homestead, where Christmas trees are my business, teaching including horticulture is my job, and outdoor projects are my passion.